It is, it's actually really funny how the most profound insights into modern tech can sometimes come from, like, the absolute most unassuming corners of the internet.
Oh, yeah, completely. Just totally random places.
Right. So I want you to just imagine you are scrolling through Reddit. It's August 11th,
It's
2025.
just a normal day online.
Exactly. And you click onto this post by a user who goes by the incredibly relatable name, pitiful underscore raisin underscore 301.
Honestly, a fantastic username. I love it.
It's so good. But sitting right there, just kind of buried in the middle of all the usual internet noise, is a single unsolved riddle. It's
Yeah.
just 7 words long. Quote, "What is always near but always far."
It's so elegant, in its simplicity. And on the surface, it just feels like a classic, like a children's brain teaser.
Totally.
But when we decided to take this deep dive into Pitiful Raisin's riddle, we didn't just want to, sit around and guess the answer ourselves.
Which would have been fun, but yeah.
Right, right. We wanted to see what would actually happen if we fed those exact 7 words into 13 different US AI chatbots.
And we primarily used arena.ai for this, right?
Yeah, actually.
Wow.
We used arena.ai to put these models in a totally blind testing environment.
So no branding, no UI tricks.
None of that. We wanted to see exactly how their underlying architectures would attempt to solve it, because our mission here isn't just to find the quote-unquote right noun to solve a puzzle.
Right, it's way bigger than that.
It is. We are using this tiny, seemingly simple riddle as, well, like a diagnostic tool. We're exploring how different AI models parse human ambiguity.
And how they compute paradox.
Yes. How they navigate the incredibly messy, subjective world of abstract thought.
Okay, let's unpack this setup a bit, because giving a predictive text engine a riddle is kind of like a reverse Turing test for creativity.
Oh, that's a really good way to put it.
Right. Think about it. We aren't testing if the machine can successfully sound like a human. That's the normal Turing test.
Right.
We are testing if it can actually process the weird, contradictory, highly subjective ways that you and I, actually experience reality.
We're asking a machine built on cold, hard math to navigate an entirely illogical human feeling.
Exactly. And I find the choice of using arena.ai really interesting here, because by using that blind testing ground, we just strip everything away. We're just looking at the raw cognitive approach of 13 different models.
Yeah, and when you strip away the packaging, what you are left with is just the foundational logic of the system.
The raw data.
Right. And what the data shows is that to solve a paradox, an artificial neural network usually attempts to ground the contradiction in the physical world first.
It wants something tangible.
Exactly. It looks for a literal spatial boundary that mathematically satisfies both conditions of the prompt, proximity and distance.
Which perfectly explains the consensus we saw across a bunch of the models.
Right. The most common answer provided by the bots was the horizon.
The horizon. And from a computational standpoint, I assume that is because the models are heavily weighted to associate the word near with, physical proximity and far with physical distance.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Models like Gemini and Grok, for instance, they both zeroed in on this visual approach.
What did Grok say exactly? I remember it was very literal.
Grok called it the edge of what you can see.
Okay, yeah.
So it is always in your field of vision, which mathematically satisfies the near token, but it's physically unattainable, which satisfies the far token.
Right, it's a boundary that exists purely in relation to the observer.
Yes, and then the model Nova actually expanded on this by detailing the spatial mechanics of it.
Oh, right, Nova went into the actual terrain.
Yeah. Nova pointed out that this paradox applies regardless of elevation. Whether you are on flat ground or a mountain or a boat, the horizon is mathematically constant.
Because it retreats at the exact rate you approach it.
Exactly. The models aren't really imagining a horizon. They are pulling from vast data sets that describe the horizon precisely in these relational terms.
But, and this is where it gets funny, if we look at a model like Nematron, that strictly spatial logic just goes completely off the rails.
Oh my gosh, Nematron was hilarious.
Right. Nematron swoops in with this massive, 120 billion parameter architecture, and it doesn't just answer the riddle. It turns it into a full-blown physics lecture.
It really did.
It actually argued that this is an optical illusion caused by the Earth's curvature.
Which is technically true, but...
But it didn't stop there. It actively critiqued the other potential human answers. It dismissed the answer tomorrow because it argued that's temporal, not spatially near.
And the rainbow critique.
Oh, yes. It rejected the end of a rainbow because it said rainbows require specific meteorological conditions.
It's just a fascinating look into how parameter size and training data heavily influence behavior.
How so? Like, just because it has more data.
Yeah, basically. A model like Nemotron, with such a massive parameter count, has ingested just a monumental amount of scientific and encyclopedic data.
Okay.
So when you ask it a question, its architecture is highly optimized to prioritize objective reality and factual accuracy over, linguistic abstraction.
It just wants to be right.
Exactly. It calculates that the most quote-unquote correct answer is the most scientifically verifiable one.
But if it treats the riddle purely as a physics problem, doesn't that expose a fundamental flaw in how these models prioritize facts over nuance?
I mean, arguably, yes.
Because a riddle isn't supposed to be scientifically accurate. Nemotron, breaking down a children's riddle using the Earth's curvature, it feels like, well, it's like asking a mathematician to analyze the structural integrity of a poem.
That is such a good analogy.
Right, it's technically correct, sure, but if the AI defaults to physics, it is fundamentally failing to understand the genre of the prompt.
I think that is a very fair critique of models that, over-index on pedantry. They lose the forest for the trees. But that limitation is actually exactly why we saw a divergent strategy from several other models in the test.
The ones that pivoted away from space.
Right. The models that realized the physical constraints of space couldn't elegantly solve the paradox. They shifted their computational focus into a completely different dimension.
Time.
Yes.
Time, the temporal shift. And this is where we get the other classic answer, which is tomorrow or the future.
And this was super common.
Yeah, this was the dominant output for ChatGPT, Granite, Laguna, Llama, and Muse Spark. And logically, it makes perfect sense. Time is just another axis that these models map.
Exactly.
Granite and ChatGPT both explain that tomorrow is near because it's chronologically only one day away. But it's far because the very second it arrives, the definition shifts, and tomorrow is pushed another 24 hours out.
Let's dig into the computational approach here because it is distinctly different from the horizon answer we just talked about.
That's so.
Well, the models are identifying that near and far don't actually have to be spatial coordinates. They can be temporal coordinates.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Laguna broadened it to just the future, calculating that the future is perpetually approaching on a timeline, but remains forever inaccessible in the present moment.
It feels less like a riddle and more like a GPS trying to route a path to a moving destination.
Yes.
Like the destination is technically on the map, you can see it on the screen, but its coordinates just constantly update the closer you get, making it mathematically impossible to actually arrive.
That GPS analogy is actually a brilliant way to understand how a large language model navigates semantic relationships.
Really?
Yeah, because to an AI, words are just coordinates in a high-dimensional space. We call these vector spaces.
And Llama seemed to recognize that shifting coordinate system explicitly.
It did. Llama played the diplomat.
Yeah, it refused to commit to just one paradigm. It outlined both the spatial answer of the horizon and the temporal answer of tomorrow.
It didn't want to choose.
Right. It defined the core of the riddle as a perpetual paradox. It seemed to understand that the structural mechanism of the riddle was the whole point, not the specific noun used to fill in the blank.
Exactly. Llama isolated the underlying pattern. But while Llama was super analytical about it, Muse Spark gave an answer that was genuinely arresting.
Oh man, Muse Spark was the absolute standout here for me.
It was so poetic.
Instead of giving a clinical breakdown, it phrased its answer like this, quote, "No matter how fast you run, you never actually arrive. When you do, it's called today."
I mean, it strips away all the robotic pedantry we saw from Nemotron.
But this brings up a massive question about what these models are actually doing behind the scenes. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Let's hear it.
When MuseSpark says, no matter how fast you run, it is treating time as a physical space that a human can, physically exhaust themselves moving through.
Right. It's the ultimate carrot on a stick.
Exactly. You're always chasing tomorrow, but the moment you take a bite of the carrot, it magically turns into today.
Which is a very human way to feel about time.
So my question is, are we seeing an AI demonstrate a deep, nuanced understanding of human metaphor? Or, and this is kind of my working theory, is it just regurgitating our own poetry back to us?
That's the big question.
Is it just mathematically echoing common human idioms because it's ingested enough literature to know that humans talk about time this way.
Your theory hits right at the heart of how large language models actually operate.
Okay, so it is just echoing.
Well, to answer that, we have to go back to those vector spaces I mentioned earlier. The AI does not, quote unquote, understand the physical exhaustion of running.
Right, doesn't have lungs or legs.
Exactly. It doesn't know what it feels like to chase the future. But in its training data, it has mathematically mapped millions and millions of texts.
Okay.
In that high-dimensional space, the concept of running is mapped incredibly close to the concept of exhaustion, which is mapped closely to temporal concepts like chasing tomorrow.
Wow, so it's all just proximity of words.
Yes. The AI has created a flawless topographical map of human semantics. It knows that humans associate the passage of time with physical exertion.
So when it generates that output,
It isn't feeling the metaphor. It is calculating the most statistically probable, resonant way humans express that specific paradox.
that is wild. So it's synthesizing the architecture of human expression, not the experience itself.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. And it perfectly contextualizes this third group of responses we got. Because if the first group mapped physical space and the second group mapped time, this final group had to grapple with concepts that have absolutely no physical or temporal boundaries.
We are talking about pure subjective abstraction.
Right, and this is where we see models navigating extreme ambiguity.
Because when a prompt is highly open-ended, a model's confidence score for any single definitive answer just plummets.
It gets insecure, basically.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
To compensate, models like Claude and Inkling offered menus of interpretations rather than one hard fact.
It gave us options.
Right. They recognized the abstract nature of the prompt and provided options based on completely different facets of human experience.
Inkling's output was so fascinating to me.
What did Inkling say again?
It suggested yesterday. And the reasoning it provided was that yesterday is, quote, close in memory, but forever out of reach in reality.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's mapping the proximity of human recall against the impossibility of time travel.
And then Claude offered an interpretation that scaled the paradox to, like, a cosmic level.
Well, right, the astronomy answer.
Claude suggested the stars, visible right overhead, seemingly close enough to interact with, yet separated by light years of actual distance.
And Nova, which is the same model that gave us the breakdown of the horizon earlier, if you remember, Nova offered an entirely psychological interpretation.
Right, Nova went inward.
It suggested the answer could be dreams, goals, or ideals.
That's a huge leap from the horizon.
It really is. It calculated that human ambition operates on this exact axis of feeling intimately near in our minds, but agonizingly distant in reality until achieved.
So Nova is mapping the psychology of ambition. But I have to say, if we are looking at the absolute pinnacle of how an AI can calculate abstract philosophical concepts, Trinity takes the crown.
Hands down. Trinity answered the riddle with time or the present moment.
Trinity's logic just blew my mind.
Same. It argued that the present moment is always near because it is literally now. You are occupying it.
You cannot be any nearer to a moment than existing inside of it.
Right. But it argued it is always far because the very fraction of a second you try to grasp it, to hold on to it, it becomes the past.
It perfectly articulated the mindfulness paradox,
Exactly. The harder you try to hold on to the present, the faster it slips away and becomes a memory.
which is an incredibly sophisticated semantic calculation. Trinity is identifying that proximity and distance don't just apply to space or timelines, but to the fleeting nature of human consciousness itself.
It's stunning. But before we give these models too much credit for their philosophical brilliance, we really have to talk about Mercury.
Ah, yes, Mercury.
Because Mercury provided a very stark reminder of exactly what these systems are at their core.
The glitch in the philosophical matrix.
Seriously, Mercury gave us what might be the most revealing result of the entire deep dive.
It's so ferno.
It generated this soaring, beautiful description. It wrote, quote, "You can see it right in front of you so it feels near, yet no matter how far you travel, you can never reach it. It always remains far."
Which is a flawless description of the paradox.
It is,
And
except Mercury completely forgot to actually state the noun.
it just left it out.
It gave the entire definition and just totally forgot the answer it was describing.
Which perfectly illustrates how the attention mechanisms in these models work and, how they sometimes fail.
How does that even happen, though?
Well, large language models generate text sequentially, token by token. They're constantly calculating the mathematical probability of the next word.
Okay, so it's a real-time prediction.
Right. So in Mercury's case, it got so heavily weighted on generating the descriptive tokens like the poetic phrasing of the paradox that the mathematical probability of the actual target noun just dropped completely off its radar.
It described the shape of the whole flawlessly, but forgot to calculate the object that goes inside it.
That's exactly it. It's a reminder that no matter how profound the output seems, we are ultimately dealing with statistical prediction engines.
Which brings us to the core question of this entire deep dive. When you look at the full spectrum of these 13 answers, when Trinity calculates the fleeting nature of the present moment, or Nova maps the distance of unachieved dreams, or Inkling calculates the painful proximity of yesterday's memories, what are we actually looking at?
It's the big question.
If it's all just vector spaces and attention mechanisms, are these machines just blindly matching keywords, or is there some nascent form of understanding taking place?
That really requires us to be very, very precise about what understanding means in a computational context.
Because it's not human understanding.
No, not at all. The AI does not feel sadness over lost yesterday. It doesn't have dreams for tomorrow.
Right.
But what it does have is the totality of human literature, conversation, and recorded thought digitized into its training data.
The sum of human expression.
Exactly. It has processed billions of data points where humans describe their longing, their regrets, and their ambitions.
That's mapped it.
Through all that data, it has created a high-resolution map of human emotion. It knows exactly where the peaks and valleys of our sadness are located mathematically.
That is so wild to think about.
It knows that concepts like dreams cluster statistically near concepts of desire and unreachable distance. It isn't experiencing the emotion, but it is flawlessly calculating the coordinates of our feelings.
It is a perfectly polished mirror.
Precisely. To synthesize this whole journey we've been on, just think about the trajectory of those 13 models.
Okay.
A simple 7-word riddle from Reddit user Pitiful Raisin 301 forced these systems to map the very boundaries of human perception.
Starting with the physical.
Right. They started by grounding the paradox in the physical mechanics of the Earth to explain the horizon.
And then time.
When physical space failed, they shifted their computational axes to map the relentless, uncatchable march of time with tomorrow.
And then finally the abstract.
Finally, they ventured into pure abstraction, mapping the incredibly fragile nature of human memory, ambition, and mindfulness.
And for you listening, this is exactly why dissecting these seemingly silly riddles matters. As you integrate AI more deeply into your daily life, whether you are using an LLM to outline a project, write an email, or brainstorm a complex problem, it is vital to remember how they actually function.
They aren't just calculators.
No, they aren't just calculators spitting out objective facts, and they definitely aren't sentient beings feeling your pain. They are mirrors reflecting the vast, messy data set of human experience.
And that reflection tells us so much.
How these models interpret a riddle shows us exactly how they are computing us. By mapping the semantic relationships of our words, they are learning our limitations, our hopes, and our incredibly complicated relationship with time and space.
And that leads to one final lingering thought I really want to leave you with today.
Oh, I love a good lingering thought. What is it?
We've spent this entire deep dive analyzing how well artificial intelligence can dissect our human paradoxes. We've seen how their vector spaces can beautifully articulate why our dreams, or our yesterdays, feel simultaneously near and far.
Right.
But what happens when the capabilities of these models evolve past simply reflecting our limitations?
What do you mean?
What happens when they start generating entirely new riddles for us to solve?
Oh, wow.
Try to imagine what it will look like when an AI creates a paradox based on digital concepts, high-dimensional mathematics, or scales of time that the human brain simply isn't equipped to perceive.
That is, we started by saying this was a reverse Turing test, using a riddle to see if a machine could understand our human experience.
But the dynamic is going to flip.
Yeah, the real test is coming. When they start writing their own riddles, mapping dimensions we can't even see, will we even have the capacity to understand theirs?